Okay, we'll start with this. Well, there were a lot of fights that took place this weekend, different parts of the world. One title fight that took place south of the border. Erica Cruz, reigning WBA featherweight champion, was in action and was her first defense of that WBA title against the challenger, Melissa Esquivel, a capable boxer who was flustered by the unorthodox, awkward style, aggressive style of Erica Cruz, the reigning champion. And round after round, it really was the same story. Erica made herself a difficult target to deter, a difficult target to get respect against. Melissa Esquivel is a talented boxer, educated, but you wouldn't know it based on how this fight played out because she wasn't being afforded the room, the real estate, and the opportunity to box, to turn this into a boxing match. It wasn't up until round 9 that Melissa started to get a fix on the situation and what she needs to do with a very come-forward, aggressive Erica Cruz that has a fantastic gas tank. That is as a result of Erica hailing from Mexico City, Mexico. High altitude. You don't know it on the surface, but those fighters that hail from a place, it's high altitude, where it's a little bit hard to breathe for everyone else. These fighters, more so than others, have great gas tanks, great energy reserves. And that's why Erica can maintain that feverish pace from the first round to the 10th and final round.
She can throw a lot of fucking punches.
And she's no finesse fighting kind of fighter. Melissa was unable to deter Erica Cruz. She landed a couple of clean shots here and there, well-placed shots, but they didn't get Erica's respect. Erica's the kind of fighter that you have to beat with your feet.
Managing in the distance is how you beat her.
Which is very hard to do because Erica likes to crowd her opponents. She's a volume puncher.
There's two ways to beat a fighter like Erica.
You either have the firepower, strength of arms, to fight her off, blow by blow, trading shots mid-range to inside. You either have it or you don't. If you don't have it, you've got to beat her with your feet. You have to beat her with your legs.
Set the shots up on the fly.
Try to work off the counter because if you don't know nothing else, you know she's going to come forward and she's going to throw. So you've got to give yourself enough room, enough real estate to set up the shot, get it off, and have something behind it. Drive the punch. And you can't do that if she's crowding you. This involves perhaps taking a half step back or working to hook on the turn, shifts and pivots, the way Terrence Crawford did.
What he did to Sean Porter.
Rather than engaging Sean Porter in the pocket, what you saw Terrence Crawford doing was maneuvering around him. Shifts and pivots, hooking on the turn.
To catch him as he tries to come in.
I believe it was in round 9 that you saw Melissa Esquivel start to figure Erica Cruz out, but by then she was a day late and $1 short. The deficit is far too wide. She was significantly behind, and she would have needed a knockout to win at that point. Erica Cruz, she's about as tough as they come. Wasn't much chance of a knockout happening from round 9 to round 10. She was having it all her way.
It's not the prettiest style, but it works for Erica.
One fighter that I think possesses the necessary skills, all the necessary tools to work around Erica's very come-forward and aggressive style. One fighter, one champion that I think has everything it takes to beat her is Amanda Serrano because she's got the feet, she's got the legs, and she's got the power.
Erica ain't gonna fight on the back foot the way Jamie did.
Which I think is the only reason that Jamie even heard the final bell, made it to the final round, because she abandoned her very come-forward and aggressive style to fight off the back foot and fight on the fly. Erica ain't gonna do that. She don't know no other way about going about it except coming forward and letting her hands go.
She get fucking knocked out doing that with Amanda.
I think that Erica Cruz could probably beat Sarah Mahfoud, take that blue belt from her, that IBF title, but I don't like Erica's chances against Amanda. Are we on the eve of that fight? Apparently not. Amanda Serrano is supposed to be in action one more time before this year is out against Spain's own Miriam Gutierrez, and then she's supposed to be moving straight into a Katie Taylor showdown. Doesn't look like the featherweight division is going to see any unification fights for some time, not unless Erica and Sarah get up with each other, and I don't think that's about to happen. That's big risk for Sarah Mahfoud. So congratulations to Erica Cruz, who was in action this past weekend. Her first successful defense of the WBA featherweight title. In other news, the fallout continues this past weekend's lightweight contest as all those alphabet titles have changed hands. Teofimo Lopez Sr., father of Teofimo Lopez, on Teofimo Lopez's loss to George Kambosos, he says everybody knows he won that fight. Everybody was upset. They booed the decision in MSG. It's a bullshit loss. I should have never fought with DAZN. I should have stood with Top Rank. And see, here is the problem.
Here.
You hear it in the verbiage. What I is Senior talking about? He didn't fight anyone. His son fought on DAZN, and his son and his team, you among them. You made that decision. Top Rank wanted to do this fight, and had they done this fight...
You know what? Maybe it would have worked out differently.
Those of you that have been following this channel for at least a year now have heard me say this time and time again. This was not a big fight. It shouldn't have been a big deal, but Team Lopez made it a big deal.
They wanted big money for what wasn't a big fight.
That's how we got here, folks. That's a big part of how all of this happened. That's what led us all to this place where Teofimo Lopez doesn't take care of his mandatory challenger until over a year's time from the Lomachenko fight. And had they got this fight done in a timely fashion, had they let Top Rank do the fight at the price that Top Rank wanted to do the fight at that time,
might have worked out differently.
Teofimo strikes me as a young fighter who had too many people in his ear. His father among them. His father, who likes the camera being in front of it just a little bit too much. It's not about you, it's about your son.
You need to fucking understand that.
And this is not going to stain my son. It's going to stain him because now we can't say we're better than Floyd Mayweather, because now Floyd's going to say we got that loss. And listen, it doesn't really matter. He's the people's champ. Everybody's going to fill out the arenas for him, you know? And that's all I'm concerned about, you know? The people know who won that tonight, and it doesn't matter what the judges said, we won tonight. And this bullshit loss, because it's a bullshit loss, and I should have never fought with DAZN. I should have stood with Top Rank, because those are the people that really love us. And I learn, you learn from your mistakes, you know what I'm saying? So we go back with Top Rank, and 2 pay-per-view fights next year, and then an ESPN fight. I mean, everybody know what happened. Okay, just upset. They booed the decision in the Madison Square Garden. So we just gotta keep on living and do big fights and selling out arenas like we did tonight. You know, and we sold out the Madison Square Garden on, you know, on vaccination time. You know what I'm saying? Where you gotta be vaccinated to get inside. So
that kind of denial, that particular brand of it, and that lack of accountability, it's dangerous is what it is. Self-destructive. And that is the same kind of denial, the same kind of lack of accountability that saw Deontay Wilder getting battered for the second time by Tyson Fury earlier this year.
I'm not trying to kick a man when he's down.
I'm just giving it to you straight because it's the only way I know how to give it to you. If not for Teofimo's father, members of his team, David McWater's name almost immediately comes to mind. Perhaps this fight would have happened sooner. And if it would have happened sooner, perhaps it wouldn't have been as difficult for Teofimo to make 135 pounds. Even George's own father acknowledged that it was a hard cut for Teofimo Lopez.
They knew.
He's going to come because he ain't got a tank. He's going to come. He struggled to make weight. He really, really came in dry. But the thing is, we said he's going to come. He's going to bomb you with everything. You've got to stay smart. You've got to keep light on your feet. You've got to keep moving. Stay tight with your defense and just keep moving, mate. Do not let him bomb you and catch you with anything. You don't have to go toe-to-toe with him. You've got 12 rounds. He prepared for 1. But the one thing I always said to him is round by round. And he went round by round. And after T.A. threw everything at him in the first, you could see T.A. was starting to suck in the big breaths. And we thought, beauty. He threw everything.
They knew. Teofimo had a hard cut. Teofimo, who was already struggling to make 135 pounds before he even fought Vasyl Lomachenko. And he fought Vasyl Lomachenko over a year ago. Teofimo was struggling to make lightweight before that. It was a negligence on him and his team's part to stay in this division this long if making 135 pounds is that difficult? And why did they do it?
Got fucking greedy, that's why they did it.
Lopez Sr. was quoted as saying, "I don't need no rematch, man. My mistake was leaving my son at 135 pounds for so long. This game, you gotta knock everybody out. If you don't knock everyone out, this is what happens. It was a complete robbery."
Man's in denial.
In Lopez Sr.'s mind, those in attendance were booing the decision. In his own mind, that's what he thinks, when in reality, it was Teofimo they were booing for being an ungracious sportsman and a sore loser.
Man's in denial.
He says, "We dictated the fight from the beginning, aggressively. Everyone in the world knows what happened. Everyone is saying he won the fight 9-3 to 10-2. The whole arena saw it, and it was just disgusting. I can't believe what they did to us. But you know what? They just saved us.
They didn't do anything to you. You did this to yourself.
You sacrificed a year of your son's career to get at a little more money, just a little more money, knowing that he was already struggling to make 135 pounds. You did that." Now what he's saying is, we're going to go up to 140, we're going to get a fight in February, and then fight Josh Taylor in springtime, insisted Elder Lopez. This doesn't change anything. You know what I'm saying?
This changes everything.
Teofimo Lopez Sr. is a fucking idiot. He's an idiot is what he is, because this does change everything. Do you think the Top Rank is going to pay you millions upon millions upon millions of dollars after you went over to DAZN and lost all those world titles? They wanted to do the fight at their price, and that wasn't good enough for you. As a result of that, the fight went to a purse bid. Triller won the bid. Matchroom placed the second highest bid, and that's how we got here. And all of this is your fault.
You should have let Top Rank do the fight.
This fight would have happened months ago, where perhaps Teofimo wouldn't have been struggling as much to make the weight. He would have been sharper on the night, sharper the night of the fight, because it would have been closer to the Vasil Lomachenko fight and that performance that he put on. The fight happening sooner than later would have greatly benefited Teofimo. But if it didn't happen sooner than later, it's because you guys got big in the britches, got big fucking heads, and started asking for top dollar, big money for what wasn't a big fight. Now, I'd be careful what I say about Matchroom and DAZN, I would. I'd be very careful to preserve that relationship, because if by some chance Top Rank decides to drop Teofimo and end his contract right here and now because he lost all those world titles due to his own greed, if they decide to drop him, who do you think's going to pick him up? Who do you think's going to put money in his pocket? The PBC?
Don't burn no bridges with Matchroom.
The truth is that Teofimo Lopez Jr. would have greatly benefited from this fight happening sooner than later, but both he, his father, David McWater, members of his team, they're the ones that decided to hold out for more cash, hold out for more scratch at a time when he knew he was struggling to make that weight. And this was the end result. You can't blame Eddie. You can't blame Matchroom. You can't blame DAZN. Those in attendance don't believe that your son won that fight.
That's the lie you tell yourself.
The entire boxing world saw the fight the same way. They saw George Kambosos win that fight. That's what they saw. And you only have yourselves to blame for letting it get to this point. And finally, I'm sure most of you have heard by now, it's official. Amir Khan will fight Kell Brook on February 19th, early next year at the Manchester Arena. It will be billed as a Sky Sports pay-per-view in the United Kingdom. I was right to assume that this fight would land on Sky Sports. Sky, that is no longer in bed with Matchroom, thus they are in need of fights, fighters, familiar faces, and content. I was right to assume that this wouldn't be a Matchroom show because both Amir Khan and Kell Brook have both burned Eddie Hearn in their own way. You have to remember, Amir Khan, well over a year ago, I think it was 2, maybe even 3,
He signed a multi-fight deal with Matchroom.
that was intended to result in a Kell Brook showdown, and that didn't happen. Amir Khan, he had a change of heart. He ends up going to Top Rank, fights Terrence Crawford, and loses to him instead. Afterwards, he goes over there to the Far East. He fights Billy Dibb.
But he didn't fight Kell Brook.
Kell Brook, who took a similar route moving forward, he and his people negotiated a Terrence Crawford fight without Eddie Hearn's involvement. And Eddie, he didn't like that. He didn't like what Kell Brook had to say about a lot of things. Kell Brook, who was angry that Sky Sports, at that time, they decided not to pick up the Crawford fight. There were some words exchanged.
And they have since buried the hatchet.
I mean, I think they have. But a few months ago, I got the sense that Eddie Hearn is not invested in an Amir Khan versus Kell Brook fight. It is a fight that could do good business, could do...
I think it could do well.
But I don't think that Eddie Hearn wants to be bothered with either of these two guys. I think that Eddie Hearn has had his fill of the Amir Khan and Kell Brook saga
He's been involved already about as much as he would like to be.
And he has left it in someone else's hands. Ben Shalom and Adam Smith, boxer. It's going to be a Sky Sports pay-per-view. And you're going to hear a lot of moaning. You're going to hear a lot of groaning that the fight is past the sell-by date. Though I've maintained throughout that the week of the fight, and that fight week buzz, wanting to know who's going to get the bragging rights. Because this ain't about a title, and this ain't about status.
This is about bad blood.
It's about bragging rights, domestic bragging rights in the United Kingdom. When it's all said and done, people are going to want to know who's winning this fight. Since the both of these guys are on the back nine, they're both circling the drain. They are at the respective end of their respective careers. That also means they're on even terrain. A couple of years ago, I would have told you that I like Kell Brook to win the fight. I like Kell Brook to knock out Amir Khan. Back when Kell Brook had a granite chin, he was a lot more solid. Since then, he's had 2 orbital bone fractures to either side of his face, either eye. He's been stopped by Terence Crawford, and I think his punch resistance, well, it ain't what it used to be.
He's not as durable as he was.
And Amir Khan stopping him with what remains of Amir Khan's lightning fast hands, his lightning speed. Amir Khan, who will be training here in the good old US of A with Team Crawford.
Amir Khan stopping him isn't far-fetched.
Amir Khan, who's never had the best punch resistance.
He hasn't.
Even in his prime years. Amir Khan, who just don't take the best shot. They're on even terrain now because now Kell Brook don't take the best punch. Kell Brook don't take the best shot. This fight is going to be fought at 149-pound catch weight. I've no doubts that's to accommodate Amir Khan, as Kell Brook would be a lot more solid at a contracted limit of 154 pounds. If he's coming down to 149, that's likely to accommodate Amir.
That could be a hard cut for Kell.
That's only 2 pounds above the welterweight limit. That's all that is. It would be a better fight for Kell at junior middleweight at 154 pounds. So if he's got to come down to 149, what's that going to do to his punch resistance? What's that going to do to his ability to perform? I say this now. It's a more even fight than it used to be. A couple of years ago, I would have picked Kell to knock out Amir. Now I'm not so sure. You want to hear that crap about how the fight's past the sell-by date? I say better late than never, because there's a lot of fights that didn't happen that should have happened in the sport of boxing. Bo versus Lewis among them. Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford might be another. But at least Amir Khan and Kell Brook are going to hash it out in February next year. And I'm looking forward to it.